Hi. Quick thing, I kind of want to do something. I guess you can call this a review. I recently finished the. Okay, I've gotten a couple of these Star Wars omnibuses, which are nice. I I have joked before that I never really read like the Marvel omnibuses because they're huge, and I have moral issues with owning a book that doubles as a bludgeoning tool. But obviously I have a couple. I mean, I did that Secret Wars 2 video after all. But I also find it kind of weird that they exist when Dark Horse and IDW have been publishing these things too. These kind of, in a weird way, mock the existence of those. Usually, like, these are only like 500 pages max. Well, hell, this one's not even 300. But I just want to get that thought out there. I find it hilarious that I have all these nice books that, like, the most I've spent was like maybe $50, and that was for the Jack Kirby Cap one I have. But they're very expensive, very nice, but very expensive. And yet you have these nicer ones that are smaller. I have here. Let me. I got it. This is how they look compared to like a regular trade. They're like a little, maybe like an inch shorter and a few centimeters. Like it's very. It's really just height that's the difference. But anyway, I have a couple of these specifically of some Star Wars omnibuses or omnibuy or whatever the frick the plural sound is. And one I got to. I started reading first. I got a few others, of course. Is the Infinities one. Basically, what Infinities is. Well, if you ever look at like for example, I think this has a timeline to it. I don't know if it. But no, this one actually doesn't. But usually, there's a timeline, different eras: the Rise of the Empire era, the Rebellion era, the Legacy era. And then there's Infinities that has absolutely no place because they're entirely out of continuity. Basically, these are, what-if tales in the Star Wars universe. They published 3 minis, all based on the original trilogy, and the whole concept, like many what-if stories, is it takes a specific event in the movie, and then says what would how big of a change that moment would have on the course of the rest of the story of the movies. And the examples are, what if instead of destroying the Death Star, Luke's proton torpedo malfunctioned and the Death Star was still there? Or, what if in Empire Strikes Back, Luke died from freezing to death and Han wasn't able to save him? Or in, what if in Return of the Jedi, I am kind of paraphrasing the back of the book here. What if Leia's thermal detonator destroyed Jabba's palace before they could rescue Han? And from there, now again, this isn't like, these are all like entirely, like these aren't even in the same continuity with themselves, the 3 minis. So they're all unique stories. The only difference is, well, the only thing similar to them really is, the Star Wars universe bit, but the fact that something, basically, it's like they gave to 3 different writers, here's a movie, make a big change, and go with it. And that's basically all of them. And they're all really entertaining stories, and in some cases kind of compelling twist on the Star Wars. Like, I say this, the big thing about doing kind of what-if Elseworld kind of stories is why, like, you kind of run the risk of changing so much to ask, why the hell did you need Batman in your story about aliens and spy espionage or whatever the fuck happens in something like that? Like, why does, like, where you kind of have to be careful of, the point of the character you're using kind of ceases to really make any sense, and you've created something entirely different, but you slapped a name on it. These feel like natural Star Wars stories. They still have the tones of the movies for the most part. Though I argue, the thing about the first one for A New Hope is it's the last couple of minutes of A New Hope. Well, it's A New Hope abridged for like the first few pages. Then the ending, then the twist at the ending happens, and you basically get the course of the other 2 movies. as dictated by this new timeline, and that's basically the same thing. But calling it A New Hope is kind of weird, considering really you're not watching A New Hope. You're just seeing what happens if A New Hope was a different ending. Like Empire's sort of the same. The events of Empire, though, it still feels very much like it's the events of Empire. And then it also has the ending of Return of the Jedi, because and again, it's that same thing, but they're all very interesting stories to read because everyone still feels like they're in character. You still feel like you're reading Star Wars. You still feel like you're just looking at an altered version, a slightly altered version of the movies. Another thing in here that kind of, this is a nitpick for me. I can't explain to you why I've always had this issue, but I find it so bizarre when you take things that are in the prequel movies. Like, if you decided to show me a photo of, like, a Photoshop of Mace Windu hanging out with hanging out with Chewbacca, I'm always like, those are, because I really do kind of look at the prequel and the original trilogy as so different. It's so bizarre to see. It's like if you put like the Brave and the Bold version of Batman in Justice League Unlimited. They're just so different that it's bizarre to me. And some of you may think that's odd. Others think that kind of speaks volumes of the prequel trilogy. But it's just so weird. And I bring that up because I'm not going to tell you the exact context of it. I'll keep it as spoiler-free as possible. But there's a bit here where, and it's one of the best bits of the entire omnibus, where Yoda fights Darth Vader. And it's, and if I'm right, the particular issue this came out, I think this was for Attack of the Clones, where if Attack of the Clones had come out, we would have had a Yoda, you would have had Yoda just jumping around like a pinball like he does in the movie. But no, this was it was right after the movie, but I'm going to assume they probably wrote and drew it before the movie came out, so they probably didn't have this. But it's still basically just Yoda using his mind. The reason why I bring up the whole prequel original trilogy, when you mix them together, it bugs me, is during the fight, Yoda basically conjures up Force Ghost. So Qui-Gon and Mace Windu, again, before the whole Force Ghost thing was really defined. And you even see, like, Attack of the Clones, Hayden Christensen, which slightly contradicts the whole, I wasn't sure if this came out before or after Attack of the Clones, but they probably had production photos to work with. And and you also see little Jake Lloyd, Anakin, and it just always it's just so weird to, you know what it is? It's that same awkward feeling you get when you see the end, like the remastered version of Return of the Jedi, and Hayden Christensen's just there looking stupid. Well, it makes more sense in this. It's still weird to me. It's just so jarring. And I get, like, these were made in the 2000s. It makes sense that they would use it. It's a problem with me, not the book. So writing-wise, these are good. Art-wise, I think they're fine. There's nothing here that makes me blow, like, oh god, this is the greatest art ever. The first, like, the New Hope mini has some really weird, has some questionable decisions. Art-wise, like, let me find it. There's this really bizarre panel of Luke going, "You think this is funny?" Oh, it's right here. I'll try my best here. Yeah. Camera. I don't know if it's picking up too well on the webcam, but he has this bizarre face. Also, and again, I don't always expect everyone to be perfect, but there's this clearly, like, unchecked dialogue balloon where it looks like the Emperor is speaking in, like, YouTube comment speak, where it's broken up, and I swear they use a number instead. It's like, oh god, it's turning into a lolcat. The second arc's the second minis art is a lot better. It's it doesn't have all the weird face like the big problem with this one and the other one, which is notable because if you read the DC Comics Batman Beyond stuff, like that Hush Beyond mini and the ongoing, the main artist of that, Ryan Benjamin, he draws the Return of the Jedi arc and the mini, whatever. You people get me, and it's fine for the most part. Though there's instances like this where they clearly Photoshop the Death Star in, which I find really weird when they do that. And I get it's easier, but it's just distracting. Also, for the one thing that really gets me about his art, also like clearly a weird like photoshopped X-wing. I'm bad at cameras, but his faces are a little weird looking, mostly on the people who are just humans. And that's one thing about his art that's always gotten me on Batman Beyond. Of it's really weird looking, but since it's based off an animated series, it's fine. Like it's okay if it looks a little exaggerated. But because he's drawing faces of actual people that I've seen before, I mean, for God's sake, look at this. That's another thing. Sometimes he's really weird at drawing necks. Like his faces are a little. When it comes to aliens, it's okay because they're aliens. But it's a little odd. Like he also did another arc. I read the because the other ones I have are the At War with the Empire stuff. Like mostly collects the stuff from the Empire ongoing. And the first arc he drew, which is great writing wise, but some of the worst art in that entire collection. It's like I think he was doing this at the same time. His stuff here looks a lot better, and I think he's gotten better with Batman Beyond. But though that's just me. So yeah, if you can find this is a lot of fun to read. If you like Star Wars, if you like the original movies, these are fun little twists. I will say it, because obviously they're Star Wars comics, but because they're in the movies, you get a lot of callbacks and line repeats. Some slightly changed, like famous lines are said by maybe someone else or in a completely different context. There is one thing in here that's bizarre looking. I'm not gonna spoil it, but there's a moment with Darth Vader at the very end of the Return of the Jedi one that makes sense in the story, but there's a certain panel, I'll let you look it up if you're curious, that's a little unbelievably on the nose and kind of silly. It's bizarre. Just to say it's kind of that thing where it's like, wow, they did that, huh? Okay. So yeah, if you can find this, which is relevant to say now because I don't know how easy this is going to be to find come October when Dark Horse has lost the rights to Star Wars. I don't know like how easy finding these collections will be. I'm sure they're going to fall out of print and be a little hard to find. And I have no idea if Marvel's going to ever reprint any of the Dark Horse stuff. So, yeah. Find this while you can. I really do recommend it. It's fun. Bye.